Sorry, we're good. We're here. Thank you, Daniela. Yes, today is March 20th. Thanks for joining us. It is also Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And so we are joined by a special guest, the co-founder of Colorectal Cancer Canada, Bunnie Schwartz. And we'll introduce Bunnie. He's ready to come up. Thanks for joining us, Bunnie. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Pleasure. Nice to meet you. Yes. Okay. Good day, everyone. And thank you, Jeremy, for inviting us. I'm happy to be here today on behalf of Colorectal Cancer Canada. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we're a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting patients, survivors, caregivers, and families affected by colon cancer. Our mission is to raise awareness, provide trusted information, and advocate for better prevention. Early detection is very important, and access to care from diagnosis and beyond. We're excited to be partnering on this event day, as we believe that by coming together, sharing our knowledge, and fostering connections is essential in making a difference. If you'd like to learn more about what we do or connect with our team, please don't hesitate to come see me at the table. And my partner, Julie, is with us today. And have a great cooking session.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Bunnie. Thank you, Bunnie. And also for those watching at home, we'll be sure to post a lot of the links and resources that Colorectal Cancer Canada has on their website so that you can access them virtually as well. But yes, thanks again, Bunnie. Today, our focus is going to be on colorectal cancer awareness, and we're going to talk about some nutrition and support with our cooking as well.
Yeah. So I really want to thank Bunnie for all the work she does with Colorectal Cancer Canada, your advocacy, the resources, and the connection, and connecting with us. It's so important, the collaboration. In honor of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, as Jeremy has just said, we are going to showcase recipes that help reduce the risk of cancer, of colorectal cancer, all cancers, a lot of cancers, specifically colorectal cancer. And what we're going to do is look at how we can reduce intake of red meats, and also how we could bump up the fiber intake, our plant food intake. What does a plant-forward diet mean? Along with this, though, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that March is also Nutrition Month. And the theme this year, and actually for the next couple of years, is Nourish to Flourish. And what we are saying with Nourish to Flourish is that we want to recognize the importance of food and nutrition when it comes to the health of our body and function of our body, but we also go beyond the physiological health, and I know Colorectal Cancer Canada does this too, in looking at emotional resilience, mental health, and fostering social and cultural connection. And that is also what we hope to do with ELLICSR Kitchen. So hopefully the audience, you can let us know if that's what we're doing correctly. But that's enough of Nutrition Month for now. Yeah. We need to get to the recipes. You can, those of you that are here can smell the aroma. It's beautiful. So our first recipe is a cheesy egg breakfast taco. And although red meat, as I mentioned earlier, we want to reduce our intake of red meat, it still is a good part of our diet because it has protein, iron, and vitamin B12. But eating pork, beef, lamb, or goat every single day at every single meal has found to be too much for us and can increase the risk of colorectal cancer. And the guidelines recommend that we eat no more than 3 servings per week of red meat. And that could be, when we talk about a serving, I forgot to bring my deck of cards, it's like the palm of your hand or the size of a deck of cards. So if we're cutting back on red meat, we do have to replace it with another type of protein because protein is important for healing. So what protein options do you think we could include? I'm going to ask our audience. If we don't have red meat, what else can we include? Egg, yeah. Cottage cheese, beautiful, beautiful. Fish, excellent, excellent. Beans, yeah, yeah. Lentils, excellent. Wow, this group's got it all.
Red meat?
Pork.
Is pork red meat?
Yeah, yeah, I know, we get that question a lot, but it falls into that category.
Okay.
You can still have it, you just can't have it all the time. Yeah, poultry would be fine too. Yeah, excellent, we have a great group, great group.
Love it.
So this recipe, you can tell in the title, it's actually showcasing eggs. Eggs are a high quality protein. It also is rich in other nutrients like selenium, choline. It also has vitamin B12 and it has some vitamin D. And we'll talk a bit more about that. And although there isn't strong evidence for this, there is some evidence that vitamin D can help with risk reduction for colorectal cancer. Okay, off to you, Jeremy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Daniela. You mentioned a few proteins that we're going to be using today, which is perfect. We've lined this up beautifully. The first recipe that I want to showcase is it's a breakfast taco. I love it because of its simplicity. This was something that went like sort of viral on social media months ago. And they essentially use feta cheese to create like a base and then crack an egg inside. So I loved it so much. I tried it a few times. It's sort of a go-to if I need a really quick breakfast that is higher in protein. We're going to make a few switches, a few little twists on it to make it a little bit easier, a little more accessible. And we're highlighting, instead of feta cheese, which you can absolutely use here, we're using cottage cheese. But not just any cottage cheese. This is one of my favorite versions of it. It's a dry pressed cottage cheese. Okay. Yes. So it is the same thing, but essentially it's been pressed so that all or most of the moisture, a lot of the moisture, has been removed. So it has the consistency of like just a dry, crumbled sort of feta cheese.
Where are you getting that?
So you can find this in Farm Boy Metro. I found mine at No Frills. It will be in the section where cottage cheese is, in the refrigerator section, where you have your tubs of cottage cheese. You will see this. If it's there, you might have to ask the grocer. And it'll come sort of vacuum packed in a package. Exactly.
Okay.
But it would be beside your regular tubs of cottage cheese. Yes, question?
What is the benefit of having it pressed? Is it just that it lasts longer or just consistency?
So in terms of lasting longer, it's probably going to be similar, but because there's not as much moisture, it probably would last a little bit longer. Your protein count per serving, and I'll look at Danielle, is probably, I guess, a little bit higher.
Yeah, because you've removed a lot of the moisture. It's going to concentrate that a bit.
Yes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a second.
Okay.
But I want to get it started. So the first thing we're going to do, so essentially you would make a mound in your pan, a non-stick pan. But I want to show you an easier way, especially if you don't have a non-stick pan. We're relying on my favorite tool of all.
Is it a surprise?
Yes, no, yeah. Most of you probably know it's parchment paper, okay? So I have just a regular stainless steel pan here. I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper about, the size of my stainless steel pan.
Okay, that's new.
Right?
Cutting it with a knife. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you can use scissors. You don't have to use a knife. You can use scissors. And I'll save this for another use later. But I have my pan. And Kobe, if you don't mind, coming in on the pan shot. Number 3. We have a new director here in the audience. Okay, so
I lost the rights to the
not that you weren't doing a good job. Okay, so we have our piece of parchment right in the pan, and I have it about medium heat to medium-high heat. You can sort of adjust depending on your stove. And I'm going to take my dry pressed cottage cheese. Again, you can use cheddar, you can use feta cheese. A lower moisture cheese I find helps. If you have something that's a little more on the wet side, like a traditional cottage cheese, it makes a bit of a mess because it starts to push a lot of the water out, okay? So we're going to, and you know what? You can actually do this to make it a little safer. You can do this on the cutting board. Number 2, perfect. So I'm essentially just using my spoon to make a little bit of almost like a circle shape, right? so that it gives me some space to crack my egg into.
It's like a well.
Yeah, like a little well. Exactly. Right, so about a couple tablespoons, 2-3 tablespoons. And what's nice again about with the parchment is I can just kind of bring it back and forth as I need. And we're going to put it directly on top, about a medium-high heat. And I want this to start melting and bubbling and to create like sort of this caramelized crust. Okay. In the middle of that well is where I'm going to crack my egg. So, egg right in the middle. Do it carefully. If it spills over a bit, don't worry about it.
I missed, do you
There we
already
go.
have the heat on?
Yes,
You have the
medium
heat
high.
on. Medium high heat, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, so, and we're gonna cook this for about, until you start to see it bubbling, then you'll see I'm gonna put the lid on top. But we're gonna cook it for about 5 minutes or so, okay? I'll throw it back to you
Sure.
for a second, yeah.
Okay. What I like about this recipe is that it's actually a single serving, right? So many times we get questions about I live alone. If I prepare this food, I don't want to eat it over and over again. I get tired of eating it over and over again. So making this is a great serving for one person. It's high in protein. So that's what I love about it. The other thing we can talk about is I mentioned a little bit about protein, and there are some directions that, and we also get asked, how much protein should I have, right? How much protein in a meal? And so there is some guidance that having about 20 grams of protein per meal is good. And so doing a little bit of quick math, if we're looking at our egg and our pressed cottage cheese, one egg has about 7 grams of protein. And then a regular half cup of cottage cheese has about 14 grams of protein. This is pressed, so it's going a bit more concentrated, so less than a half. So doing math, 14, 21. So we're actually getting a good amount of protein in this dish.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can zoom back in here, I've got some, without tilting it too much, I've got some bubbling action. So it's starting to melt the cheese. And what I'm going to do at this point is take a lid, take a different one, it's a little bit larger than my pan, and just cover the top. If you want to add a little bit of salt and pepper, which I did, a little bit of olive oil, you can do that as well. I don't need too much, maybe like a teaspoon or two. And we'll put the lid on top to finish. Now, in terms of toppings, this is, completely up to you. You can throw avocado on there. You can throw, I have some cherry tomatoes. Maybe if you want to throw some spinach. If you like a little bit of spicy, you can throw a little bit of hot sauce. Like, this is where you can kind of play around with it a little bit. But in terms of that protein piece, it's very simple. We're going to cook it on that parchment, and then we can easily transfer it over to a piece of toast, or we're going to be using a tortilla for this. Now, in terms of eggs, I know that has been coming up quite a bit in the news recently. This is 1 egg for this serving. There are other options as well that obviously you can use. I haven't seen as much of a fluctuation in price point for eggs here. So, use what works best for you. In terms of the cheese, the cottage cheese, the pressed cottage cheese is, I find, a pretty similar price point to your regular tubbed cottage cheese, but because it doesn't have as much moisture in it, it actually stretches a little bit longer as well. Pressed cottage cheese also freezes really well because it doesn't have the moisture that you do find in a regular cottage cheese. So you can freeze the rest of it, crumble it up and freeze the rest of it, and you're good to go.
I'm also assuming it's more flavorful with the water being removed.
So it's actually very bland.
Oh, it's very bland.
So, but
Okay.
but I say that in not a disparaging way. It's in terms of feta, because texturally it's going to be very similar to feta. Feta is a brined cheese, so it has more of that salinity. It has that flavor, that saltiness to it. Whereas the cottage cheese, the pressed cottage cheese, does not. So it allows you to add flavor, right? It allows you to add flavor and you're in control. So I add a little bit of salt because I know that there really is very minimal salt in the pressed cottage cheese. It's kind of like the tofu of cottage cheese. Yeah, absolutely. So you can sort of play around with it. No, not even close. Yeah, it's very, very mild. So you can sort of adjust the seasoning.
So that's good then, because
Yes.
you can determine if you need a little salt or a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
It's looking good under that lid.
Yeah.
Sorry you guys can't see it.
We're getting there. We're getting there. So I'm going to lift it up just to show you what's going on. So I have some really nice color developing with the cheese. I want it to sort of get nice and sort of crispy and crumbly.
I'm
And-
realizing,
Yeah,
I'm realizing patience is important,
Yes.
which I'm not that good at.
Yeah. But again, it's like it should take 5 minutes tops.
Yeah.
From end to end. If you like and then you cook it to, your designer's done this for the egg. If you want like a little runny, you can cook a little less. If you want it to cook a little bit more solid, and especially if you need to, right? You cook a little bit more, and so yeah, you cook it to you've done this. When you're ready, I'm ready here. I'm gonna add my tortilla right on top. Okay. And what I love about this,
There's a lot of oohs and ahs.
it's just in terms of, again, it just makes it so easy with the parchment, but pretty much taking it off, right? Be careful, but just grab one of the corners, and we can just flip it off. And again, like in terms of like cleaning your pan after, this makes it so much easier, right? And so I have my tortilla ready to go. And here is where we're gonna do a little flip, right? So we'll put the pan on top. And you can let it cool down a bit, but it's not that bad. We'll flip it. And then
Nice.
the parchment
Really nice.
will come off. And so you have that sort of caramelized cottage. And this is cottage cheese. You still get that ooey, that gooey, that caramelization. You're gonna have a little bit of texture on there as well. And then this is where, again, if you want to throw some, I just have some cherry tomatoes, make it pretty simple on here, but you can put some avocado.
Flexibility.
Flexibility.
Flexibility is so key, right? Because some days you feel like eating. I mean, we're talking about cancer risk reduction, but we're also talking about managing side effects of treatment and taste changes, whether you can have fiber or not. So you can decide whether the tortilla is going to be a whole grain tortilla or a white tortilla. And then the visual appeal, the way it looks, right? We always talk about, this is appealing to my eye hunger. My mouth is starting to something.
Yes, yeah. So this, like I said, in terms of the ease, the functionality, is it a messy taco? Absolutely, but that's usually a good thing. That's usually a good thing.
Did you heat that taco? I'm missing something in my
So-
memory.
After putting it on, the egg, just sort of the residual heat was enough to sort of soften it up. You can do a little toast of it beforehand if you want.
Right.
With the corn tortillas, I just like to warm it through. If I use a flour tortilla, then maybe toasting it up a little bit more to get a little more color on
Right.
there. You can do that. Or a piece of toast, put a piece of toast in there, toast it up. Same process, completely up to you. But as long as it's sort of warmed through, then I'm good to go. I'm not going to eat it in front of you right now because that would be embarrassing, messy. But you'll get to try it after. For everyone here at home, you'll have to do it at home. You'll have to make it.
If
that
you
is
do
our
make
first.
it, let us know how it goes.
Yes,
Yeah. And send us pictures. We love pictures.
Yeah. So our cottage cheesy
Oh, our cottage cheesy. Okay.
breakfast
Egg.
taco.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All right, awesome. Any questions? If you do have any questions, I'm going to throw it open here. But if you do have any questions, if you're watching at home, type it in the chat, and we'll answer your questions. Yes, questions here.
I'd like to know if you use regular cottage cheese, which I have, does it take more time?
If you use a regular cottage cheese, the regular cottage cheese is, because of the moisture content, it will be pretty messy. We actually tested it out yesterday, So I would suggest if you don't have a pressed cottage cheese, then use another cheese like a grated, like a cheddar, like a cheddar cheese or a feta cheese, a drier cheese, and then you do the same process. You sort of make your circle, make your mound, crack your egg in the middle, and it works the same way. A cottage cheese that has a higher moisture content, it doesn't quite work as well. This process, yeah.
Good question.